Hello everyone and welcome to my Y&R Insider 24 update channel on The Young and the Restless, why Audra should team up with Jack to defeat Victor. Diane is ecstatic to join Jack in crushing Victor on The Young and the Restless. Photo courtesy of CBS. Jack, Peter Bergman, told Diane, Susan Walters, on Thursday's episode of The Young and the Restless that he is betting on Kane, Billy Flynn, giving Jill, Jess Walton, his AI software. Then, Jack believes Jill will hand the software to him, after which he will use it to demolish NE. Diane was ecstatic and said she would be in on that plan 100%. Since Jack is so sure that everything will turn out just the way he wants it to, why not hire a cunning and unflappable businesswoman like Audra, Zuleika Silva, to help him out? Sure, Jack and Audra don't like each other, but they both hate Victor, Eric Braeden, and would love to score a win against him. Because Audra and Victor conspired to break up Kyle, Michael Miller, and Claire, Haley Erin, Jack does not trust her. But Audra could make it clear that she only did it out of desperation, because she needed funding for her company, Vibrante. She regrets having turned to the wrong businessman for assistance. In addition, Claire repeatedly informed Kyle that the reason she ended their relationship was unrelated to him. It was because she needs time alone to figure out who she is. Jack's alliance with Audra would offend Kyle. Kyle and Audra can't stop sniping at each other on The Young and the Restless image, YouTube. Diane and Kyle would strongly oppose Jack joining forces with Audra. However, Kyle intends to fly to Los Angeles to pursue Claire, so he would not even need to be aware of his father's plan to cheat on the woman he constantly fights with. Jack would have to keep it a secret from Diane because she despises Audra. At least for the time being. This would ultimately create even more drama and conflict on The Young and the Restless when she finds out eventually. It would put their already strong marriage, which is what soaps are all about, to the test. Hopefully, they would work through it in the end, and it would provide some great material for all the actors to play out. Since Audra lost Nate, she has nothing to lose anymore. On The Young and the Restless, Audra attempted to reclaim Nate but was unsuccessful. Image source, YouTube. Since Audra and Nate, Sean Dominic, are no longer together, she wouldn't have to worry about Nate finding out about her plan with Jack to kill Victor. She probably would love to work together with anyone in Genoa City who has a plan to destroy Victor and his valuable company. Since she and Jack are both strong-willed business people, they might make interesting partners in crime, even if it's only a temporary alignment. Courtney Hope's best friend Sally would not want Audra to participate in such a scheme. But Audra could keep her mouth shut about it, which would cause a lot of trouble for the two friends when Sally finds out what her friend did. On The Young and the Restless, Jack and Audra rarely, if ever, appear in the same scene, but maybe it's time they did. It would be entertaining to watch them plan out a sinister strategy to use the AI software to sabotage Newman Enterprises. Who is aware? They might come to respect each other's business acumen by the time it's all over. Why Audra and Jack should work together to stop Victor on The Young and the Restless. Power shifts are the pulse of The Young and the Restless, and Genoa City's chessboard never stands still. Every titan rises and falls at the mercy of schemers, secrets, and shifting alliances. Now, as Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, positions himself to challenge the seemingly untouchable Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, a potential game-changing partnership is hiding in plain sight, one that could rewrite the corporate landscape of Genoa City. That partnership is between Jack Abbott and Audra Charles, Zuleika Silva. Even though they are naturally enemies, their union with Victor could set off the kind of explosive power struggle that will remind viewers why this soap is still the best daytime drama on CBS. The concept seems risky and impossible at first glance. Jack and Audra have been on opposite ends of several business and personal feuds. Jack doesn't trust her, Diane despises her, and Kyle can barely stand to be in the same room as her. However, history demonstrates that the most perilous alliances in Genoa City typically begin with shared animosity and an adversary. And in this case, that enemy is none other than Victor Newman, a man who has played puppet master to nearly every resident in town. Jack's latest ambition, to use Kane Ashby's, Billy Flynn, artificial intelligence software as a weapon against Newman Enterprises, is bold, strategic, and ruthless. He believes Kane will give the software to Jill Abbott, Jess Walton, who in turn will hand it over to him. Jack intends to use it to demolish Victor's empire piece by piece from there. Jack's determination delights Diane, Susan Walters, the ever-supportive spouse and partner in crime. She's eager to stand by his side as they aim to topple the most powerful man in Genoa City. But even Diane's optimism can't disguise one truth: Jack is overconfident, and his plan lacks a critical component, an insider with the kind of fearless cunning that only someone like Audra Charles can provide. The case for reinvention and Audra's recoveries. Audra sees the chance to work with Jack Abbott as more than just a business move, it's a chance to get back on her feet. After her failed alliances and romantic missteps, Audra is at a crossroads. She's burned bridges with Nate Hastings, Sean Dominic, alienated Kyle Abbott, Michael Miller, and is currently without a meaningful place in Genoa City's power hierarchy. She was once on track to become a major player in the business world, but now she is in limbo, watching from the sidelines as Victor, Victoria, and even Adam set the rules for the city's future. Jack was hurt by Audra's betrayal of Kyle and Claire, Haley Erin, by collaborating with Victor to end their relationship. He perceived Audra as dangerous, self-serving, and manipulative. But what if the weapon Jack needs is precisely that danger? Unlike Jill, Diane, or even Billy, Audra has a ruthlessness that's not bound by sentiment or nostalgia. She's a woman who has clawed her way up from obscurity, using intellect and instinct as her only weapons. She is familiar with the competitive business world and Victor's methods because she has observed them firsthand. Moreover, Audra's motives could be reframed. What if her alliance with Victor was the result of desperation rather than greed? Vibrante, her company, was having trouble. She needed funding, and Victor offered a lifeline, one that came with dangerous strings attached. If she confides this truth to Jack, it could humanize her in his eyes. She could acknowledge that working with Victor was the worst choice she ever made, and she is determined to atone for it by assisting in the assassination of the man who manipulated her. Audra's partnership with Jack in this scenario would not just be about retribution, rather, it would be about reinventing herself. She has played the villain, the swindler, and the corporate shark. Now, she could evolve into something more complex, a woman who fights her way back from disgrace, determined to prove her worth in a world that's written her off. Jack needs Audra, the perfect storm. Jack's confidence is both his greatest strength and his most dangerous flaw. He's convinced that Kane will surrender his AI software to Jill, and that Jill will simply hand it over to him. However, anyone who is familiar with Chancellor Industries is aware that Jill Abbott is reluctant to cede power, even to her family. She's shrewd, unpredictable, and always thinking 3 steps ahead. Jack's entire strategy is based on the idea that everything will work out perfectly, which is never the case in Genoa City. This is where Audra comes in. She may be a valuable asset due to her ability to read people's motivations, manipulate situations from behind the scenes, and exploit weaknesses. She's the kind of strategist who thrives in chaos, who can turn setbacks into opportunities. Where Jack brings integrity and experience, Audra brings edge and unpredictability. They could balance Jack's moral restraint and Audra's willingness to do whatever it takes by working together. Additionally, Audra comprehends Victor's psychological warfare. She has first-hand experience with his methods of manipulation, intimidation, and defeat. Jack was unable to anticipate his actions, but she could. She's even more dangerous because she knows how much it will cost to cross him. She knows Victor doesn't just fight to win, he fights to destroy. Jack needs that kind of insight if he hopes to survive this corporate war. Secrets, lies, and the fallout at home. Of course, Jack's decision to team up with Audra wouldn't come without consequences, particularly at home. Diane's hatred for Audra runs deep, fueled by jealousy, mistrust, and maternal protectiveness over Kyle. If she discovered Jack's secret alliance with the woman she considers toxic, the fallout would be explosive. Diane is proud of her role as Jack's confidant and equal partner. To learn that he went behind her back to collaborate with Audra would feel like the ultimate betrayal. For viewers, this would be a goldmine of drama. One of the most stable marriages on The Young and the Restless in recent memory is that of Jack and Diane, but conflict drives ratings. A storyline where Jack hides his alliance from Diane would test the limits of their relationship. It would force them to confront questions of trust, loyalty, and moral compromise. Diane might even suspect that Jack's interest in Audra isn't purely professional, reigniting her insecurities and stirring echoes of past betrayals. Meanwhile, Kyle's reaction would be pure outrage. He and Audra have clashed repeatedly, each accusing the other of arrogance and deceit. If Kyle found out that his father was secretly working with the woman he despises, it would deepen the father-son rift that has been simmering beneath the surface. Yet, Jack might justify his secrecy by arguing that Kyle is too emotionally involved to see the bigger picture. After all, Kyle is preoccupied with his own romantic chaos, namely, his pursuit of Claire in Los Angeles. Jack may gain the cover he requires from that distraction to proceed without interference with Audra. Audra's emotional isolation and new motivation. Audra's life, post-Nate, is defined by loss and disillusionment. She tried her hardest to win him back, but he turned her down. She has been left with only her ambition and pride in the aftermath. Partnering with Jack could reignite her sense of purpose. She is currently seeking power, respect, and redemption rather than love. Audra's complexity is what makes her such a compelling character. She is a survivor, not evil for the sake of being evil. She's learned to weaponize charm, intelligence, and sexuality because the world around her rewards those traits. However, she hides a vulnerability that is rarely discussed by Genoa City's power players beneath her armor. If the Young and the Restless writers gave Audra a chance to show that side, audiences might finally see her not just as a vixen, but as a multidimensional woman trying to carve out a place in a world dominated by legacy dynasties. Her partnership with Jack could offer just that, a chance to prove herself as more than a manipulator. She could show strategic genius, take real risks, and even show conscience flashes. Working alongside a man of Jack's moral fiber might even change her, just as working with Audra might harden Jack in ways he never expected. The Sally factor, friendship tested. Sally Spectra, played by Courtney Hope, is Audra's best friend and the only person who has seen her humanity. Sally would be horrified by Audra's involvement in any plot to destroy Victor, knowing firsthand how dangerous it is to challenge him. She might plead with Audra to walk away, reminding her of what happened to everyone who's ever gone up against the Newmans. But Audra, fueled by pride and ambition, would refuse to listen. This would drive a painful wedge between them, testing their friendship in ways neither anticipated. Sally's eventual discovery of Audra's deception may result in a dramatic, hurtful, resentful, and disappointed confrontation. It would also raise intriguing parallels between Sally's own choices, like her past manipulations involving Adam and Nick, and Audra's current scheme. In this way, the show could explore how ambition often isolates women in Genoa City, forcing them to choose between loyalty and survival. Jack and Audra. The powerful chemistry. One of the most intriguing aspects of this potential storyline is the chemistry between Jack and Audra, not necessarily romantic, but intellectual and psychological. They represent two sides of the same coin: Jack, the old guard, and Audra, the ambitious upstart. He's guided by legacy and family honor, she's driven by independence and reinvention. They could come up with a fascinating dynamic that is built on tension, respect for one another, and cautious admiration. Imagine scenes in which Jack and Audra secretly plan, match their intelligence, and question each other's motives. Their conversations could be laced with sarcasm, subtle flirting, and a shared thrill in outsmarting Victor. Over time, Jack might begin to see echoes of his younger self in Audra, the same hunger, the same fire, while she could find herself drawn to his steadiness and wisdom. Even if this relationship stays strictly professional, it could become one of the most compelling duos in The Young and the Restless. The domino effect, how the alliance could shake Genoa City. If Jack and Audra's plan succeeded, the fallout would be seismic. Newman Enterprises would face unprecedented vulnerability, forcing Victor, Victoria, Adam, and Nick to close ranks. The Newmans' retaliation would be brutal, setting off a chain reaction of betrayals and counterattacks. Kane, Jill, and even Billy could get caught in the crossfire, as alliances shift and loyalties blur. Meanwhile, Diane, Kyle, and Sally would face explosive confrontations when news of Jack's secret partnership broke. Friendships would fracture, marriages would be tested, and reputations would be destroyed. In true soap opera fashion, the repercussions would have an impact on Genoa City for several months, if not years. And yet, by the end of it all, Jack and Audra might emerge with something they never expected: respect for one another. Their temporary alliance could evolve into a grudging friendship, even a mentorship, marking a new era for both characters. It would serve as a reminder to Jack that one can reinvent themselves at any age. It would demonstrate to Audra that she can forge her own path to power rather than relying on men like Nate or Victor. Final thoughts: why this storyline could revitalize The Young and the Restless. Pairing Audra Charles with Jack Abbott is more than a storyline, it's an opportunity. It would merge two underused characters into a combustible new partnership, inject fresh energy into the corporate rivalries, and create emotional fallout across multiple relationships. It would also give fans something they crave: complex storytelling where ambition, morality, and emotion collide. Audra and Jack share a trait that defines the best characters in The Young and the Restless: they never stop fighting. Even when the odds are stacked against them, they keep fighting, whether it's for power, love, or redemption. Together, they could remind viewers why Genoa City remains a battlefield where only the clever and the bold survive. And one of the most shocking and satisfying shifts in power in recent memory would occur if they are able to eliminate Victor Newman, even temporarily. After all, as Y&R fans know too well, there's nothing more thrilling than watching a long-shot alliance bring a legend to his knees, if only for a moment.